Greetings brothers, thanks for tuning in to the weekly tactics video. Today we're answering the question, who's going to be better in your 9th edition army list? Is it Commander Dante or is it a chapter master on the bike, which I think we should all just agree and call your Blood Angels commander? If we're just meeting, I'm John, the Blood Angels commander. Every week we do a ton of Blood Angels content on this channel. If that's something you're interested in, please consider subscribing. If you want to get straight into the content this week, click down below on section 1, base profiles. However, since it is the festive period and it is Christmas Day this video is going out on, today is the 24th, I thought what we do is, because hopefully most of you guys have realised from now that I am in Scotland, so we're going to have a Christmas drink and then, yeah, you'll know really who's best. So, if you're not from Scotland, then obviously Scotch is from Scotland. And, yeah, I love Scotch. Scotchy Scotch. And this is Dalmore cigar malt. I don't smoke anymore, but this is a cigar malt. And this is what they call a nosing glass. So, and for anyone that's not familiar with whiskey, if it is more than 40%, and maybe my camera will pick up this, that it is 44%, you're not supposed to just drink this straight, because above 40%, apparently above 35%, the alcohol will just, it'll drown out some of the flavour. So what we've got here is just a tiny bit of bottled water. So if you want the tiniest little drop, we're just going to dilute this a tiny little bit. I mean, if you want ice, you can do ice, but I prefer not to with ice. And then, before you drink whiskey in Scotland, you're supposed to greet it. And what I mean by that is you're supposed to smell, and you're supposed to say, "Hello there. How are you? Nice to meet you." And now we can taste. Yeah, so if you don't celebrate Christmas, I guess have a great holiday season. And if you do celebrate Christmas, then Merry Christmas. I hope Santa's been good to you. And I hope you decide to get a new chapter master, call him the Blood Angels commander, and without any further ado, let's get into the video. So Commander Dante versus the chapter master. So we look at Dante, 175 points, weapon and ballistic of 2, strength and toughness of 4, 6 wounds, 6 attacks, leadership 9. If you selected your warlord and gives him the heroic bearing warlord trait for once, you get 1 additional CP for selecting him. Your leadership aura gives you +1 to all leadership within 9 inches. Once per game, you can use Angel Sacrifice or Death Does Duty End for 0 CP. He's a Death Mask, so it's -1 for all attacks made against him. And then he's got the Arx Mortalis, which is Strength 7, -3 AP, 2 damage, which is okay. I mean, it's a little better than it was. And then his Infernal Pistol. The Chapter Master on the bike, on the other hand, has 2 more movement. Same weapon and ballistic skill. He has 1 more toughness. He has the same wounds, but both toughness and wounds, we have ways of improving this. He has 2 less attacks, same leadership, and then if he's given the Storm Shield as well, then we can really buff up his saves. So let's look at how we do that. We give him the Angel's Artifice Relic, that gives him +1 toughness, +1 wound, and gives him a 2+ save. We take the Angel's, we take the Gift of Foresight Warlord trait, that gives him reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, 1 save. And then we pay 2 CP for Angel's Exemplar to give them the Adamantium Mantle as well. That gives them a 5+ Feel No Pain. So we end up with a 1-up save, a 4+ Invulnerable save, and the 5+ Feel No Pain. Bearing in mind we get to reroll 1 save each turn as well on top of this. So this guy is really quite strong and survivable, basically being able to ignore AP -1. And then we give him a Thunderhammer. So the Thunderhammer does obviously hit with -1s to hit, so we're hitting on 3s. And he does have twin bolt guns, so we can rapid fire on his bike at max range. So he does get 4 shots. Bear in mind, no AP on the bolt gun. So, benefits of being the Chapter Master are within 6, you'll get reroll 1s for core units. If Dante is selected as the Warlord and he has the Heroic Bearing, then it's 9 inches. And again, the same goes for the Chapter Master buff. Again, select a unit within 6 in your command phase to reroll all your hits until your next command phase. This would be 9 inches with Dante, but I really think with careful positioning, 6 inches should be fine. I don't think Heroic Bearing is generally that worth it. You don't often fail leadership tests for Marines. So, in terms of making Dante your warlord and getting heroic bearing, I don't think it's a high value pick. And obviously if you are the chapter master, then you get access to that rare Angel's Artifice we just talked about, and that is going to prove just how strong our chapter master on a bike can become. So if we look at the Mathhammer then, so our chapter master on the bike with the Angel's Artifice, with everything we just talked about, he against low AP weapons, compared to Dante, he's like 6 times more survivable, 5.5, something like that. It's just crazy. Against strength 6 weapons, so 6 weapons with like AP -2, he's like 6 times more survivable. Against power fists, I guess because they would now wound on 3s rather than 2s, he's like 2.5 times more survivable. And then against like the strength 9 plasma guns, then again he's like almost 3 times as survivable. And what I want to say about the table above is it doesn't actually include the ability to reroll 1 save per turn, this can be used super tactically. You know, like if you're getting hit by a lot of 1 damage weapons, then you don't reroll your save, you wait until your enemy hits you with something hard hitting, and then you use that reroll a save. Bear in mind you can also use your command points to reroll a save, so basically this guy gets the ability to reroll 2 saves per turn, and he's already crazy tanky. So the table above doesn't include that reroll, or the ability to reroll twice per turn, but at the same time the table above doesn't actually include the -1 to hit rolls versus Dante, so you just have to imagine Dante needs to be hit a little bit more. But I mean, I guess in a world where you've got like dreadnoughts rerolling hits and because they're core and stuff, then I'm not sure Dante's buff is all that great, and especially against like power fists is a good example. Power fists are already -1 to hit, so if you're hit with a power fist on Dante, Dante's -1 doesn't affect that at all, right? Because you can't be modified by more than a single point. So power fists against Dante, they would hit on, for example, 3s. They'll still hit on 3s even with his -1. It just doesn't come into play. So in this week's battle report in the live stream, this guy got the chapter master on a bike that I had. He got shot by 8 melter rifles and 4 multi-melter shots, and it was by an Iron Hands player who had a captain and a lieutenant there. So it was reroll 1s to hit, reroll 1s to wound, and at the end of that he lost 2 wounds. If you want to go watch that video, it was 3 hours 19 minutes in, and I'm totally convinced if this was Dante, he'd have been dead. Like, he would have absolutely been dead. The feel no pains and the reroll of saves. I had no CP when this happened as well, so I was still able to reroll one of those failed multi-melter shot saves. Yeah, and I mean, I guess the ability for the multi-melters to only wound him on 3s rather than 2s. What a survivable character, right? Not many characters in the game can be shot by 12 melter rounds and lose 2 wounds. And maybe if I did a CP, I could have actually made it even less. And then I think the one thing I want to say about this is I think there's something said to being alive for more turns will let you dish out more damage. You know, Dante does have 2 more attacks than this guy, and I guess he will hit more reliably with his axe. However, if you're dead, you don't do anything, right? And then every week we look at survivability for these models, so I quickly compared like this chapter master against like some other models, and he will actually survive more flame shots, flamestorm, power fist and plasma shots than a repulsor, which is kind of nuts considering that's toughness 8 and it's like a 16 wound tank. And he'll survive more small arms fire than like a Leviathan dreadnought. So I guess with his 1-up save and his toughness 6, which is sort of similar to Leviathan 7, this guy is, for 170 points, this guy is an MVP, and he can do a lot of work. So jump on to looking at damage then. So we take the regular Thunderhammer guy on the bike, and we put 5 attacks, 6 with Savage Echoes, and we did the same with Dante, so it would be 7 attacks, 8 with Savage Echoes. Bearing in mind this is including the +1 from your charge. And if we look at just worked out how much damage they could potentially do against toughness 4, toughness 7 and toughness 8. If you want to pause here, you pause because I'm not going to stay on the slide long, so this video is nice and snappy. So we're going to move straight on to, if we did all those damages from the previous slide and we fired them against like an infantry with toughness 4 and a 3+ save, a character with a 3+ 4+, infantry toughness 5, kind of like Death Guard of old with a 3+ 5+ feel no pain, a monster, a repulsor itself, and then a dreadnought with duty eternal. Just added that this week because we came up against some contemptor dreadnoughts and I wanted to factor them in. So if you work out the average damage these guys will do against these different things, and we've included both the Infernal Pistol and the Axe, assuming that we can use both per turn. I mean, I guess if we're in close combat with the Chapter Master, the chances are he won't be able to shoot the bolt gun on the bike, but that is okay. So, and then we've worked out the difference in damage here. So Dante wins slightly against infantry, but then the biker wins a little bit against characters with invulnerable saves. Dante works really well against those toughness 5 models with 2 wounds, I guess. Like he wins by a good spade. A bite against the monster in the armor, there's really no difference. They pretty much do the same damage. And then against the Dreadnought with the Duty Eternal, the bike wins heavily. So I guess with Duty Eternal being changed for Death Guard, then this model in the middle may not be so accurate. But I think the thing to note really is that like the damage between these two is very similar. And this here does include the ability to reroll 1 hit and 1 wound each turn, so I have included that in the calculation. However, like I said, when we get to the late game, if the Chapter Master uses his buff on himself for the more rerolls, then that would actually benefit him more than Dante, I believe, because Dante normally only misses on 1s, whereas the Chapter Master would miss on 1s and 2s. So hey, if you're getting value out of this video, please consider hitting the like button. So then, stratagems that we can use, we talked about only a death is duty end, so if either of these guys get killed in combat, they can still fight, and this is potentially free on Dante. The biker does have the ability to use that -1 for hit against ranged attacks. So the biker already being like 5 or 6 times more effective against Dante, you could pay 1 CP in the shooting phase, and for that phase he'll be even harder to hit as well. That just boosts him so much more as well. Both of them could use Angel Sacrifice, so force enemy units in engagement range to hit the character. Again, for Dante this could potentially be free. And then Dante does have the ability to have Wings of Fire, so redeploy at the start of your next movement phase, so you pick him off of the battlefield. So just a few stratagems, I guess, because none of them are Primaris, or both of them aren't Primaris yet. That's where we stand. And then synergies, both Chapter Masters synergize really well with the Sanguinary Guard, especially when chosen as the Warlord, due to the Sanguinary Guard's like an 8+1 to hit if they're within 6 of the Warlord. I guess that reason that they have to be within 6 kind of echoes my point about the Heroic Bearing being 9 not making that much sense, because you're going to want to position at least one Sanguinary Guard model within 6 of Dante to get that +1 to hit, or the Chapter Master. So if you do that, then you'd want Dante likewise to be within 6 so that you could do the rerolls, right? So, and again, if you do have the Sanguinary Guard within 6 and you just have the Rites of Battle, then it almost lets you choose another unit for your few full rerolls, because the Sanguinary Guard will already hit on 2s and they reroll 1s, excluding Power Fists. So if you do take some Power Fists, you would be hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s. And then with the biker, being able to advance, like when you advance with the biker, you turbo boost, so you just move a flat 6. So I really think in turn 1, you can just move 20 inches and select a unit within, so you obviously deploy the biker, you can't deploy him in D-Strike, so you deploy the biker, you select some sort of unit that's going to benefit from your Chapter Master rerolls, I don't know, a Redemptor Dreadnought, a squad of Eradicators, so you dedicate them to get those rerolls, and then you advance them 20 inches forward aggressively into some sort of obscuring position. So the Sanguinary Guard can start on the table and try and advance and keep up with them. Bear in mind, if you advance, you would be moving 13 plus a d6, because we get +1 to the advance roll. And if you don't think there's enough cover, or you're not happy, or you're not feeling confident, then I would just start the Sanguinary Guard off the board. When they drop in, again, careful positioning. If you try and drop them in within 6, or you're going to end the charge once they drop in within 6 of the Chapter Master, you can get all your synergies there, and it's absolutely not a problem. So, in summary, as it stands, I really believe we're much better off running our own Chapter Master. He's 5 points cheaper, he's about 5 times more survivable, he's just miles ahead, and like I said, careful positioning, and then Gift of Foresight over Heroic Bearing seems really strong to me, and Thunderhammer, although we do have to suffer some misses with a Thunderhammer, they do always dish out a good amount of damage, and once we get to that turn 3, when they're -3, we're pretty much pushing everything onto their invulnerable saves anyway, so you know that you can always do a bit of damage against the Thunderhammer. And I guess Dante is really, really weak now against Dreadnoughts. He's going to do like 2 or 3 damage a turn against them. At least the guy with the Thunderhammer, he's going to go in there, and as we get later into the game, there's going to be a bit of swing, right? But he can at least do like a solid 5 damage per turn against a Dreadnought. the small negative aspect, I think, of the captain is the ability that he can't deep strike. But I really think that with Kurf, if you think long and hard about where you put him down on the board, and you definitely, I mean, you can pre-measure 20 inches, so you can know exactly where you can move him to, and just get him somewhere that he's going to be safe, he's not going to get shot in turn 2, and then probably by turn 3, I mean, you'd be able to move him another 14, probably you should be into the enemy's deployment zone almost by that point, or at least then be able to get up into combat. And finally, the addition of the Adamantium Mantle on the Bike Master, it just adds a level of protection from mortal wounds, which I also think Dante is sorely lacking. Especially, you want Dante in, killing those large targets, and then most of those large targets, right, have the potential to explode. So, if Dante is killing, for example, Leviathan Dreadnoughts, or Contemptor Dreadnoughts, or whatever, anything like Mortarion, anything that can explode and deal mortal wounds, he has no way of dealing with those mortal wounds, right? Like, you don't really want to have some other character babysit him round the board. He's supposed to be like your big bad model, 175 points, whereas a Chapter Master, he can deal with those mortal wounds, and he can just be out killing indiscriminately wherever he needs to be. So leave me a comment down below. Are you taking Dante, or are you now considering the Chapter Master? Is there anything you would change that I haven't mentioned? And I do think in 9th edition we may actually see Dante cross the Primaris and become, or cross the Rubicon, sorry, I've been drinking, cross the Rubicon, become a Primaris, but if he still doesn't have any way to deal with, like, mortal wounds, that might still be an issue for me. So maybe we'll revisit Dante when he finally gets updated, but for now, I've obviously made a Chapter Master. I think he definitely fits. I mean, the 5 points difference between Dante is really negligible, but I do prefer him. So, and yeah, I mean, I guess on my future battle reports on the channel, or the future weekly shows that have live battles, you'll see this Chapter Master every week. So, I guess, have a great festive period. Thank you very much for all the support this year. Like, the channel has really grown way more than I had thought possible. I'd hoped to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year, so thank you very much. And, yeah, I guess I will see you all on Sunday for our live show, episode 2 coming up, and we'll look at army lists, and we'll have more time to take some questions from the chat. So, okay, have a great period of celebration or relaxation or whatever it is you are doing. Stay safe, and I will see you all in the new year. By the blood are we made. Peace. You know, this is a damn fine whiskey.